Hi guys, my name is Alex Wood and I'm going to be talking to you about mask theatre today. The first one we're going to cover is masks within Greek theatre. So masks are first used in Greek theatre as far back as the 5th century before Christ. Mask has become a mainstay convention of classical Greek theatre. The main types of performance are comic and tragedy. Originally used for informative purposes for the audience, many people within the chorus would wear the same mask, and they were to be considered as one being. These masks were a very important part to play in Greek theatre, as the segment facial expressions would inform the audience of intent and emotion of the character. I think from a performance perspective, I really like the Greek ethos of melting into your mask and becoming one with your mask. So instead of it just being something on your face, it then becomes part of your body and it molds onto you. I think from a performance perspective, because of that, it would mean the actors put a lot more into their performance, which then obviously would make it a lot more believable for the audience. And there's some examples of some Greek masks. Now we're going to go on to no theatre. Originating in the 14th century, they were carved and pasted on blocks of Japanese wood, so a lot of skill would have gone into creating them. No performers often came from families which specified in performing arts. So with this tradition, that meant that if there was a guy who's performing, their granddad was probably a performer, their granddad before them was probably a performer. There were houses of performers. There are 450 different types of masks within no theatre, all of them with different names and representing different ages, social ranking and intent. The interesting thing about these masks is when they're tilted in a certain way, so if you look down or up, they can convey different emotions, which then goes back to how hard they would have been to create. I think from a performance perspective, the choice of having multiple expressions within a mask gives the performer a chance to express themselves more. So it's a lot more in the moment, gives you a lot more freedom within that certain character. I think from an audience perspective, I think the sheer amount of masks, which all had different names, could be quite confusing when you look at other types of masks, where you might only have 4, 5 or 6 for the audience to remember. Each different mask could be obviously quite confusing. Here are some examples of the masks here. Onto Beninese mask. It's also called topeng. This type of mask performance originates from the 14th century. The topeng is meant to represent nature or spiritual relatives, thus it has its roots firmly in religion. However, non-religious stories have also been performed about myths and legends and heroes. The masks themselves are incredibly colourful to signify expression and the character being played. The main focus of Beninese topeng is to represent and sometimes contradict the elements of the human experience within the story to draw the audience in. I think from an audience perspective, the narrative of using spiritual ancestors is very interesting and would give the audience an instant connection to the piece. It would also be seen as a gateway to between the spirit and material worlds. So you could also see it as connecting with your certain ancestors, which, as I said, will give you a greater connection. From a performance perspective, I think the hierarchical concept of some of the masks gives the performance a solid base to create their performances and characters upon. And here are some examples of them. You see they're very colourful, mostly made of wood as well. Commedia dell'arte originated from Italy in the 16th century. It has a strong hierarchical system in place which dictates the class and the characteristics of each character. The different characters can be seen as stereotypes of their class, whether that's a good stereotype or a bad stereotype. The performances were comedic. Originally the masks were made of leather, for the actor's comfort. From an audience perspective, I think that the very stringent hierarchy they had in place and the vastly different looks of the masks that the audience recognised each character immediately as they walked on stage, even if they were in different performances. I think from a performance perspective, the hierarchical system gave you a really good idea on how you would react to the different characters and how you were going to immediately play that certain character. Here are some examples, and then you have the hierarchical system there. In masquerade, originates from the 15th century, mostly used by the upper classes. Different to any other type of mask, these masks are created to wipe you of your identity rather than give you one. The idea is to remain seen but unseen. Unlike other masks, these masks are still used within popular culture. For example, the masquerade party is still a genre party people host. I think from a performance perspective, masquerade is good because like many forms of mask, it physically takes away your identity, so your face, which is the biggest part of your identity, and allows you to imprint another identity upon it. I think from an audience perspective, I think again that's sort of the freedom that they are giving to the actor for that would allow the audience to have a lot more of a lot more of a connection because they won't really know what's happening. There are some examples of masquerade masks, and that's the end of my presentation.
That was, absolutely spot on. Very well done.